The alien market was alive with noise and light. Glowing lamps hung from crooked wires. Stalls overflowed with strange fruits, metal parts, and clothes stitched from fabrics no human had ever seen. Voices clashed with each other. Sellers shouted. Their prices buyers argued with sharp tongues, and the smell of smoke mixed with the scent of spices in the air. Among the crowd walked a human man, tall but plain, wearing old work clothes. He kept his head low, not wanting attention. For many aliens, humans were still outsiders, tolerated but never trusted. He came to the market only to buy food and go home. Nothing more. But tonight, something different happened. A sudden tug on his arm stopped him. He turned, ready to push away a beggar. Instead, he found himself staring into wide, glowing blue eyes. They belonged to a young alien girl. Her face streaked with tears. Her skin shimmered faintly in the light, pale silver with faint cracks, as if her body itself carried the mark of suffering. "Please," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Follow me." The human froze. His first thought was that this was a trap. The market was full of thieves, gangs, and liars. Many would lure a man into dark alleys only to rob or kill him. He looked around, but no one seemed to notice them. The girl's hand gripped his sleeve like iron, her whole body trembling. "I don't know you," he said slowly. "Why should I follow you?" Her tears spilled faster. She bit her lip and shook her head. "Because you're the only one who will listen," she said, her voice cracked, desperate and raw. "Please, they'll die if you don't come." The words struck him like a blow. Something inside his chest tightened. He wanted to walk away, to tell her he had nothing to do with this. Yet there was something in her eyes, something that did not lie. It was not the hunger of a thief, not the coldness of a trickster. It was fear and sorrow and a strange spark of hope. The market's noise seemed to fade, replaced by the pounding of his own heartbeat. "Who will die?" he asked, his voice sharper than he meant. She looked over her shoulder as if someone was watching, then leaned closer. Her whisper barely reached his ear. "My family." The human's breath caught. He wanted to ask more, but the girl pulled, his hand dragging him into the moving crowd. He stumbled after her, too stunned to resist. Her grip was small but strong, as if she feared he might vanish if she let go. They weaved between shouting sellers and glowing stalls. The human felt, eyes on his back, though he could not be sure. His instincts screamed caution, but his feet kept moving, guided by her desperate pull. The deeper they went into the market, the dimmer the lights became. Stalls grew fewer, shadows thicker, and the voices faded. He realized she was leading him toward the far end, where broken buildings leaned against each other like tired giants. Finally, they reached a narrow alley, its walls cracked and damp. She stopped at the entrance, her chest rising and falling fast. Her glowing eyes searched, his face begging him to trust her. "You don't have to come," she whispered, "but if you don't, they won't live through the night." The human clenched his fists. His mind shouted to turn back, to leave her, yet his heart betrayed him. He had seen starving faces before, he had heard the cries of the weak, and he knew, deep down, she was not lying. "All right," he muttered, his voice low. "I'll follow you." Relief washed over her face, so sudden and pure it almost broke him. She wiped her tears roughly and nodded, then stepped into the dark alley. He took one last look at the glowing market behind him, the laughter, the light, the safe way home. Then he turned and followed her into the shadows. The path grew colder. As they walked, their footsteps echoed against the stone somewhere far ahead. He thought he heard a faint sound, a cough, weak and broken. His chest tightened again. The girl's grip on his hand grew tighter. "Just a little further," she whispered, her voice trembling but firm. "Please don't leave me now." The human said nothing. He could not. Every step into the darkness felt heavier, as if he was walking into a story he could never walk out of again. At last, the alley split into a cracked tunnel, faintly lit by a single broken lamp. The girl stopped at its mouth, her breath shaky. She looked up at him with eyes full of fear and hope. "You'll see," she whispered, her voice barely holding together. "You'll see why I begged you." The human swallowed hard. His pulse thundered in his ears. He stepped forward, knowing that whatever waited inside would change everything. and deep within the shadows, a child's faint cry echoed again. The tunnel stretched ahead like the throat of some ancient beast, damp stone walls dripping with cold water. The human slowed his steps, his eyes narrowing as he tried to see into the dark. Only the weak light from the broken lamp behind them touched the floor. Beyond that, everything was shadows. The alien girl pulled at his hand, urging him deeper. Her bare feet slapped against the stone, quick and unsteady. Her breath was ragged, but her grip never loosened. He could feel the urgency in her trembling fingers. "Where are you taking me?" he whispered, his voice low. His instincts screamed that this was foolish, that he should turn back before it was too late. She glanced at him, her glowing blue eyes shining in the dark like twin lanterns. "To them," she said. "You'll understand." The air grew colder as they descended, every sound echoed, the drip of water, the scuff of his boots, the flutter of rats that darted into cracks. It felt like the world above, with its glowing market and laughing sellers, was a memory slipping away, the human thought of leaving. His mind pictured himself walking back into the warm market lights, buying his bread, and going home. But then the sound came again, faint and sharp. A cough, weak and small, carried through the tunnel. He froze, his chest tightened. That was no trick. That was the sound of a child struggling for breath. The girl looked back at him, her face pale in the shadows. "Please don't stop now," she begged. "Just a little more." He nodded once, wordless, and followed. The tunnel twisted left and right like a snake. The air grew heavy with dust and smoke. At times the ceiling dipped so low that he had to bend his tall frame, scraping his shoulders against the wet stone. "Why me?" he asked finally, his voice echoing too loud in the silence. "There are plenty of your own kind. Why ask a human stranger?" Her steps slowed, she hesitated, then spoke with a bitter edge. "Because they turn away," she said. Her words cracked with pain. "I begged them. I knelt before them. They laughed. They said it wasn't their problem." She turned her face, and he could see the glimmer of tears. "But when I saw you, I thought maybe a human would listen." Her words struck him. He clenched his jaw. His kind were seen as outsiders here, weaker, softer. But perhaps that was exactly why she had chosen him. He knew what it was to be unwanted, to be looked down on. They came to a section where the tunnel widened into an abandoned passage. Broken crates and rusted tools lay scattered. Perhaps once it had been a mine or a storage shaft. The girl darted ahead, pulling him around the mess. He followed, his eyes scanning every corner, his senses alert. A faint glow appeared ahead. He frowned. Was it firelight? Or something worse? As they drew closer, the glow revealed itself. A single lamp, powered by a weak battery. It flickered over a small wooden door set into the stone. The girl stopped in front of it, her body shaking. "This is it," she whispered. Her voice cracked, with fear and hope at the same time. "They're inside." The human studied the door. Its frame was broken, its surface scarred. It looked fragile, yet it seemed to guard something more important than gold. Before he could speak, she pushed it open. The creak echoed through the tunnel. For a moment the human thought the sound would draw attention from above, but only silence answered. Inside the air was thick. It smelled of damp cloth, sickness, and smoke. The glow of another weak lamp revealed a small chamber carved into the stone. He stepped inside cautiously, and then he saw them, alien children, 4 of them huddled together on the floor, their eyes wide, their faces pale, their small bodies wrapped in ragged blankets that barely kept away the cold. 2 coughed weakly, one clutched her chest, another hid behind the others. Their glowing eyes looked at him with a mix of fear and desperate hope. The human stopped in his tracks, his breath caught. This was no trick, no trap. These were children, starving, sick, forgotten. The girl rushed forward, kneeling beside them. She touched the smallest child, brushing his silver hair from his forehead. "I brought someone," she whispered. "He will help us." The human stood frozen, his heart pounded. He had expected danger, thieves, lies, But not this, not small faces staring at him with trembling hope. His mouth went dry. He had no food, no medicine, nothing to give. What was he doing here? What could he possibly do? Yet as he looked at them, something deep inside him stirred. A feeling he had tried to bury long ago. A memory of human children in ruins, coughing in the dust, faces hollow with hunger. He had seen it before. He had turned away once, but not this time. He knelt slowly. His rough hand rested on the cracked floor. The children flinched back, frightened. He spoke softly, his voice steady though his heart trembled. "I don't know what I can do," he said, "but I'll try." The girls' tears spilled again, but this time they carried a flicker of relief. And then from deeper in the chamber came a sound that froze him where he knelt. A voice, weak and broken, whispering from the shadows, a voice not of a child but of an older one. "Who is there?" The human's blood ran cold. He looked at the girl, but she turned her face away, her silence heavy with secrets. The human froze in place. His eyes searched the chamber, the weak light trembling across broken stone and piles of cloth. The voice had been faint, trembling, but older, heavier than a child's cry. The girl lowered her head. Her silver hair fell across her face as she whispered, "It's all right. It's me." She turned toward the shadows and added softly, "I brought help." The human's heart pounded. He wanted to speak, to ask who was there, but his words caught in his throat as a figure shifted in the dark corner. Slowly, with a painful groan, an older alien crawled into the flickering lamplight. It was a woman. Her skin was the same pale silver as the girl's, but cracked deeper. Worn thin, her arms shook as she tried to push herself up. Her eyes glowed faintly, but they were heavy with exhaustion. A chain clinked at her ankle, thin but cruel, tying her to a broken pipe in the wall. The human's chest tightened. He understood now. This was no accident. This was captivity. A sick girl hurried to her side, helping her sit. The woman coughed, her body racked with weakness. She touched her daughter's face with trembling fingers, then lifted her gaze to the human. "You brought a stranger," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "He's not like the others," the girl said quickly. Her voice shook, but her words were full of hope. "He listened. He came." The woman studied him for a long, silent moment. The human shifted. Under her gaze, he had never been stared at like this before. Not with suspicion, not with fear, but with something deeper. A test, a question without words. Finally, the woman gave a small nod. "Then maybe the stars have not forgotten us," she murmured. The human looked around the chamber. The walls were cracked, chunks of stone fallen on the floor. A broken beam leaned against the far corner, threatening to collapse further. The children huddled close, too weak to rise. He realized this shelter had once been part of the tunnels, but time and war had left it half in ruins. "How long have you been here?" he asked, his voice low. The girl hesitated. "Since the mines took father," she whispered. Her small hands clenched. "Mother tried to work, but they chained her when she could not pay the debts. They left us here, hidden, forgotten. No one cares if we live or die." The human clenched his fists. Rage rose inside him like fire. He had heard stories of debt chains, of the cruel system that crushed the weak, but seeing it now, in this broken place, made it real, made it unbearable. The mother coughed again, each sound tearing at her chest. The girl wiped her face and whispered, "We begged the others in the market, but they laughed. They called us cursed. They threw stones at me. They told me to let them die." Her voice cracked, "But I couldn't. I couldn't let them die." The human closed his eyes. He thought of the market, the bright lights, the sellers with full baskets of food, the laughter of the strong while these children starved underground. His jaw tightened. He knew what he had to do. "Do you have water?" he asked. The girl shook her head. "Only a little, it's almost gone." He reached into his satchel, pulling out the small flask he always carried. He had saved it for himself, but now it felt heavy in his hand. He uncapped it and held it out. The children stared at it as if it were treasure. "Drink," he said. His voice was firm. The girl hesitated, then took it carefully and gave it to the youngest child. The boy sipped weakly, tears sliding down his cheeks as the water touched his dry lips. The others followed, each taking the smallest swallow as if afraid it would vanish. The human's throat ached as he watched. It was not enough. It would never be enough. But for a moment their eyes brightened. The mother whispered, Why do you help us?" The human looked at her. His voice came quiet but steady. "Because no one else will." Silence filled the chamber, broken only by the flicker of the lamp. Then, from somewhere above, a noise echoed. Heavy boots striking stone. The human's head snapped up, his instincts sharpened. That was not random. That was the sound of patrols searching. The girl's eyes widened in terror. "They can't find us," she whispered, clutching his arm. "If they do, they'll take us all." The human stood quickly. His eyes scanned the cracks in the wall, the broken beams. His mind raced. The shelter was fragile, unsafe, but it was also hidden. They might pass if he kept quiet. The sound grew louder, closer. Voices barked in the alien tongue, harsh and commanding. The children whimpered. The mother pulled them close. The human raised a hand, signaling for silence. His heart thundered. He had only just found them, and already danger was closing in. The girl whispered, her voice trembling like the walls around them. "Please don't let them take us." The human's jaw tightened. He stepped toward the door, pressing his back against the wall. He would wait. He would listen. And if the guards came too close, he would act. His fists clenched. The path he had chosen tonight was already sealing itself. There would be no turning back. And as the boots drew nearer, shaking dust from the cracked ceiling, the human realized something with cold certainty. The moment he stepped into this broken shelter, his life stopped belonging to himself. Now, it belonged to them. The chamber was silent except for the sound of boots echoing above. Dust rained from the cracked ceiling with every heavy step. The children pressed closer to their mother, their glowing eyes wide with fear. The girl clutched the human's arm so tightly her nails dug into his sleeve. The human stood near the broken door, his body tense, his jaw clenched. He had not planned. For this, he had only followed a crying girl into the shadows, and now he stood between her family and the outside world. The voices above grew louder, harsh and commanding. They were speaking in the alien tongue. He could not understand every word, but the tone was clear. Authority, cruelty, patrol. "They're searching," the girl whispered. Her breath shook. "If they find us, they'll take the children, they'll chain them like they did Mother." Her mother pulled the little ones tighter, her face pale, her voice weak. "Quiet, don't cry, stay silent." The human's heart pounded. He looked at the faces around. Him, thin cheeks, trembling hands, eyes filled with both hope and terror. And he realized with a heavy weight that their lives now balanced on his choice. He could leave, slip back into the tunnels, escape before the guards searched deeper. No one would know. He could return to his small room, eat his bread, and sleep. The market would still be waiting for him tomorrow, but if he left, these children would be gone by morning. Their cries would be silenced, their hope destroyed. His fists tightened, his breath came sharp. The girl looked up at him, her voice barely a whisper. "Please don't go." Something inside him broke. He remembered the ruins of his own past, the faces of those he had once failed to save. He had promised himself never again. And here he was, standing on the edge of that promise. He crouched down, his voice low, but steady. "Show me what you need." The girl's eyes widened. Hope lit her face like a flame in the darkness. She swallowed hard and nodded. The mother's eyes glistened with tears. She whispered, "If you help us, they'll hunt you too. You'll lose everything." The human gave a bitter smile. "I have nothing worth losing," he said. His voice was flat, but his eyes burned with quiet fire. The footsteps above moved closer, echoing down a nearby shaft. The human listened, his ears sharp. He judged their distance, their numbers. He could hear at least 3, maybe 4, all armed, all trained. He turned back to the girl. "Is there another way out?" She shook her head. "No, only this tunnel. If they come down here, they'll find us." The human scanned the chamber. His eyes landed on the broken beam leaning against the wall. Rotten wood, heavy, dangerous. An idea formed. Risky but possible. He moved quickly, placing his hands on the beam. The children gasped as he pushed. Dust fell in clouds as the beam shifted. He pressed harder, his muscles straining, his shoulders burned, his breath came fast. With a final shove, the beam toppled. Across the entrance, cracking the doorway, stones tumbled down, blocking part of the passage. The sound echoed like thunder through the tunnels. The voices above shouted in alarm. The human turned, his chest heaving. He knew he had only bought them moments, not safety. He looked back at the family, his voice firm. Listen to me. I will hold them off. If they break through, you run deeper, into the tunnels, hide. Don't stop, don't look back. The girl shook her head violently. Tears spilled down her cheeks. No, you'll die. He placed a hand on her shoulder, his eyes steady. Then I'll die standing, not crawling. The mother whispered something in her own tongue, a blessing, a prayer. She closed her eyes, clutching the children close. The human picked up a rusted iron bar from the rubble. It was rough, jagged, but heavy enough to break bone. He gripped it tightly, his knuckles white. His breath slowed, steadying himself for what was to come. Above, the boots grew frantic. Voices shouted, stones cracked as the guards began forcing their way down. The human stood tall in front of the doorway, a single figure. Against the broken barrier, for a moment, silence fell. Only the sound of his heart echoed in his ears. He thought of the choice he had made. He could have left. He could have walked away. But now, standing in this crumbling shelter with children's eyes watching him, he knew he had chosen something greater. Not safety, not comfort, but purpose. The girl whispered from behind him, her voice trembling. Why are you doing this for us? He didn't turn. His eyes stayed fixed on the cracking stones, his grip tightened on the iron bar. His answer came low, steady, unshakable. Because you asked. The wall burst as the first guard forced his way through. The tunnel filled with shouts, weapons clashing against stone. Dust rained from above. The children cried out. The girl covered her mouth to keep silent, and the human stepped forward, fire burning in his chest, ready to face them all. The first guard crashed through the broken wall. His armored boots struck the stone, dust swirling around him. His alien eyes glowed faint yellow in the dark. A metal spear hummed in his grip. Ready to strike, the human did not wait. He swung the iron bar with both hands. The clash rang out. Like thunder, sparks burst as metal met rusted steel. The guard staggered back, surprised. The human pressed forward, his muscles burning. The children gasped, huddling tighter against their mother. The girl clutched her chest, her glowing eyes wide with fear and awe. More voices shouted from behind the guard. Another figure forced his way into the chamber. Then another. 3 in total. Their armor scratched and dirty, but their weapons sharp. They sneered when they saw him. A lone human standing in their way. This is none of your concern. One hissed in the alien tongue. Step aside, human, or you'll be buried with them. The human spat dust from his mouth. His eyes burned with fire. You'll have to bury me first, he growled. The guards laughed, their voices cruel, echoing in the stone chamber. One raised his weapon, ready to strike. But then the mother's weak voice cut through the noise, her words trembling but clear. They starve us on purpose, they chain us for their debts. They keep our children weak so they cannot rise. The guards froze for a moment, then snarled, Silence, slave. One raised his spear toward her. The human moved before thought. His iron bar cracked against the weapon. The impact rang like a bell. The guard stumbled. The human slammed his shoulder forward, knocking the alien into the wall. The chamber shook, dust falling like rain. The children cried out, but their eyes shone with something new. Hope. The human's breath came heavy. His arms shook. He knew he could not fight forever. They were trained and he was only a worker, but every time he swung, every time he blocked, he felt something awaken inside him. A strength he thought he no longer had. One of the guards hissed, Why do you fight? For them, human? They are not your kind. They are nothing, the human's voice thundered through the chamber. They are everything. The fight raged on. Metal clashed against stone. Sparks lit the dark. The human's arms burned. Blood ran from a cut across his brow. But still he stood, never falling, never surrendering. Finally, with one desperate strike, he swung the iron bar into the chest of the last guard. The alien crashed into the rubble, gasping. Then silence, only the heavy sound of the human's breath. The girl ran to him, her eyes wide. You beat them," she whispered. The human leaned against the wall, sweat dripping, blood staining his shirt. "For now," he muttered. His voice was rough. "But more will come." The mother's voice trembled as she looked at him. "Why risk everything for us?" The human turned, his eyes dark, his jaw tight. "Because someone has to." He wiped blood from his face and looked at the broken chains around her ankle. He knelt and struck the iron bar against them, again and again, until the lock snapped. The chain clattered to the floor. The sound echoed like thunder in the small chamber. The mother gasped. Her tears flowed freely. For the first time in years, her ankle was free. She touched the broken metal, her lips trembling. "No one has ever done this," she whispered. The human's chest rose and fell. He looked at her, his eyes hard. "No one cared?" The girl clutched his arm. "Now what? They'll come back, they'll bring more." He nodded slowly. His mind raced. He had seen enough tonight to understand the truth. This was not just one family. This was not just one debt. The whole system was built on chains. The powerful starved, the weak using hunger as control. They let children waste away so no one would resist. The dark truth settled heavy in his chest. He turned to the family, his voice steady. "You can't stay here, they'll find you again." The mother shook her head weakly. "There is nowhere else. Every door is closed to us." "Then we'll break the doors," he said, his voice low but sharp. "We'll find a way out, a way to fight." The girl's eyes widened. "Fight? You mean all of us?" The human met her gaze. His voice carried a weight that filled the chamber. "No one should live in chains. Not you, not your family, not anyone." Silence hung heavy. The children looked at him as if seeing something more than a man. The girl held her breath, her heart pounding. Then above, another sound rumbled. This time louder, sharper. The patrol had called for more. The boots were many, marching, coming closer. The human's grip tightened on the iron bar. He had made his choice. There was no turning back. He would not abandon them. He would not abandon anyone. He looked at the children, their pale faces glowing faintly in the flickering light. His voice came low, steady, unshakable. "If we want to live, we'll have to fight the whole city." The girl's lips parted in shock. The mother closed her eyes, and the children, for the first time, did not look afraid, but ready. The dark truth was clear. The battle had only just begun. The rumble of boots grew louder. The tunnel walls shook as dust rained down. The children clung to their mother, their glowing eyes wide with terror. The girl stood frozen, her hands trembling, her gaze locked on the human. He stood tall near the doorway, gripping the blood-stained iron bar. His breath was heavy, his shirt torn, yet his eyes burned with fire, stronger than fear. The girl whispered, her voice shaking. "There are too many. You can't fight them all." The human looked at her, his jaw set. "Then we don't fight them here," he said. His eyes flicked to the cracked walls and broken beams. He saw the weakness in the chamber, the ruin that could be turned into a weapon. He moved quickly, pulling the girl toward the far wall. "Help me," he ordered. She stared at him in confusion, but his voice carried no doubt, and she obeyed. Together they pushed at the loose stones stacked near the corner. They groaned, heavy but unstable. The mother gasped, her voice weak. "You'll bring the whole tunnel down." The human's eyes were hard. Better the stones bury us than their chains. The boots thundered closer. Voices shouted commands in the alien tongue. They were almost at the entrance. The children whimpered. The girl pushed harder, her small frame straining beside the human's strength. The stones shifted, one tumbled free, dust burst into the chamber. The human's arms burned, sweat stung his eyes, but he pressed on. Finally, The wall leaned, groaning like a dying beast. At that moment, the first guard forced his way through the broken doorway, his weapon raised, his eyes glowing with cruel certainty. Behind him came another, then another, the chamber filled with their shadows. "Stand down, human," the lead guard hissed, his voice sharp. "This is not your fight." The human's voice thundered back, "It is now." With a roar, he shoved the wall. The stones crashed down in a storm of dust and thunder. The chamber shook violently. The guards shouted in alarm as rocks collapsed around them. The tunnel groaned, splitting, choking the air with debris. The girl pulled the children close, covering them as the world fell apart. The human pressed forward, shielding them with his body. The dust stung his throat, but he did not stop. He kept moving, driving them toward the small passage on the other side. "Go," he shouted, his voice raw. "Run." The girl grabbed her siblings, pulling them through the crack in the wall. The mother staggered, her ankle weak, but the human lifted her, carrying her through the gap as stones rained down behind them. The chamber collapsed in full, sealing the path. The thunder of falling rock swallowed the shouts of the guards. Then silence, only the ragged breaths of the living. They stumbled into a narrow tunnel, dark and cold. The lamp was gone, the light lost in the rubble. Only the glow of the children's faint eyes lit the path. The girl gasped, clutching the human's sleeve. "You saved us." He shook his head, coughing dust. "Not yet. They'll dig through. They won't stop." The mother's voice trembled. "Why risk everything? Why not leave us?" The human paused, his face shadowed in the dim glow. His answer came steady, sharp as steel. "Because if I walk away, I'm no better than them." They pressed deeper into the tunnels, their footsteps quick. The air grew, colder, carrying the scent of damp earth. Far behind, muffled shouts echoed, the guards trying to break through. The children stumbled, weak from hunger. The girl carried the youngest, her face tight with determination. The human walked ahead, every sense alert, his grip on the iron bar firm. At last, the tunnel widened into another chamber, smaller but intact. He stopped, scanning the space. It was safer for now. The girl set her brother down and turned to him, her eyes wide. "What do we do now? We can't keep running forever." The human looked at her. His face was streaked with dust and blood, but his eyes shone with resolve. "Then we don't run," he said. His voice filled the chamber. "We stand." The mother shook her head, weakly. "Stand against who?" "They control everything, the food, the water, the guards, the city itself." The human's voice hardened. "Then we take it from them." The girl stared at him, her lips parted. "You mean, fight the whole city?" He nodded slowly. "Not just fight. Expose them. Show the others what they're hiding. If we rise, others will rise too." Silence filled the chamber. The children looked at him with awe. The mother closed her eyes, whispering a prayer. For the first time, the girl's fear turned to something else, hope. She whispered, "Maybe you were sent by the stars." The human shook his head. "No, I'm just a man. But I won't let them take you, not while I breathe." Far behind, the tunnels groaned with the sound of digging. The guards were not done. The fight was not over. The human tightened his grip on the iron bar, his eyes locked on the darkness. Ahead, his voice came low but unshakable. "They think we're weak. They think we'll bow. Tonight we show them what it means to stand." The tunnel was silent for only a moment. The sound of digging echoed faintly behind. But for now they were safe. The children leaned against the wall, their faces pale but calmer. The girl stood near the human, her hands still shaking but her eyes full of fire. The human wiped blood from his brow. His chest rose and fell with each heavy breath. He had fought. He had survived. But something inside him knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning. The mother's weak voice broke the silence. "You don't understand," she whispered, her body trembling as she leaned against the stone. "They will never stop, not until we are gone." The human turned to her, his jaw set. "Then we give them something they can't ignore, The girl stepped forward, her voice small but steady. You don't know everything, she said. Her eyes lowered, her lips trembling. There's more I haven't told you. The human frowned, his grip tightening on the iron bar. What more? She hesitated. Her gaze flicked toward the far corner of the chamber where a tattered cloth hung over a small passage. Her body shook as she walked toward it, pulling the cloth aside. Here, she whispered. Her voice cracked. This is why I begged you to come. The human followed, his breath catching in his throat. Behind the cloth was another small room, darker, colder. The weak glow of alien eyes flickered within. He stepped closer, and then he saw her. Another figure lay on the floor, her body thin, broken. Her silver skin cracked, her breath shallow. Chains still bound her wrists and ankles. Her eyes fluttered open, glowing faintly with pain. It was the children's mother, but worse than before. She had been hidden away, deeper than he realized, as if the world had buried her alive. The girl knelt beside her, tears sliding down her face. I couldn't let you see her like this, she whispered. But I couldn't keep her hidden forever. You had to know. The mother's lips trembled. As she tried to speak, her voice was little more than a breath. Who is this? The girl looked up at the human, her voice trembling. The only one who listened. The human's chest tightened. He dropped to one knee beside the broken woman. His hand hovered above her chains, his voice low, rough with anger. They did this to you? Her eyes closed slowly. For debt, she whispered. For daring to ask for more food. They chained me, beat me, left me here, said my children would learn obedience by watching me suffer. The children whimpered, pressing close together. The girl covered her face with her hands. The human felt fire flood his veins. His fist clenched around the iron bar. His voice shook with fury. No one should live like this. No one. He raised the bar and slammed it against the chains. The sound rang through the chamber. Sparks burst, the metal bent, cracked, and finally snapped. One by one, he broke them, until her wrists and ankles lay free. The broken chains clattered onto the stone. The mother gasped, tears spilling down her face. Her weak hands touched the ground as if she could not believe it. For the first time in years, she was unbound. The girl sobbed, holding her mother close. You're free, you're finally free. The human's chest heaved. His eyes burned with rage and determination. He turned to the family, his voice steady but filled with fire. This ends tonight. No more chains. Not for you. Not for anyone. The mother looked at him, her voice trembling. You can't fight them all. You're only one man. The human met her gaze, then let them see what one man can do. Behind them, the sound of digging grew louder, stones cracking as the guards forced their way through. The time was short. The human stood, tall, his body battered but unbroken. His eyes locked on the tunnel entrance. He turned to the girl. Take your family. When I move, you run. Don't stop until you find the surface. Her lips trembled. But what about you? He smiled faintly, though his eyes burned with steel. Don't worry about me, worry about living free. The children clung to their mother. The girl's tears fell, but she nodded. Her small hands gripped her siblings tighter, ready to lead them out. The human raised the iron bar one last time, his voice thundered in the chamber, echoing against the stone. Let them come. The wall behind them burst. The guards poured through, their weapons glowing, their eyes filled with cruel certainty. But before fear could claim the family again, they saw the human charge forward. A roar on his lips. His strength was not just his arms but his heart. The fight shook the tunnels, the guards shouted, weapons clashed, dust filled the air. The children's cries mixed with the thunder of battle. But the human stood, striking, blocking, never falling. And in that moment, something shattered. Not the stone, not the chains, but the silence of those who had looked away for too long because one human had chosen to listen, one human had chosen to fight. And though the night was dark and the city's power heavy, the flame of resistance had been lit.